Good evening, Dr. Brace. So here is my health communication assignment, my article review. And I chose the article from the Journal of Health Communication that focused on how media use and alcohol consumption among underage individuals go hand in hand here in the United States. So past research in the past showed that there was a direct correlation between media exposure and alcohol use, and it was proven that young adults who watch more television drink less alcohol. There were two longitudinal studies that were done in the past also that helped conclude that it's the exposure to the alcohol it's like the exposure to alcohol through the media that is associated with the individual alcohol use. So the research problem that was studied in the article that I read, they were trying to determine whether there's different groups of media users and whether the specific grouping was associated with drinking behaviors and alcohol drug use. The objective of this was to assess the direct correlation between the two, specific to the specific grouping. So the methods of this study. They chose an overall sample of 1,032 underage youth. These youth were all between the ages of 13 to 20 years old. Each of the participants during the intake questionnaire agreed that they had consumed at least one alcohol drink within the last 30 days. So the participants that were between the ages of 18 to 20 years old were screened differently to determine their drinking status, and they were all administered an online survey. Of the group of the 18 to 20-year-olds, 46.2% completed the screening process and 93.8% completed the survey. The 13 to 17-year-old participants were also grouped separately, and they were identified through parental consent and were also screened during using the online survey to determine their drinking status as well. For this age group, 49.2% had parental consent and 94% completed the screening process. 95.9% completed the survey. The survey that all of the participants were administered, it questioned them about their alcohol consumption, but it was characterized by brand. The brand grouping include 306 table wines, 132 beers, 86 vodkas, 77 liquors or cordials, 62 flavored alcohol beverages, 54 rums, 33 tequilas, 29 whiskeys, 27 gins, 25 scotches, 23 bourbons, 15 brandies, 10 alcoholic energy drinks, 9 cognacs, and 5 low-end fortified wines, and also 5 grain alcohols. So the researchers in this study, they focused on the 5 most popular brands consumed by males. And out of the 5 most popular brands, it was shown that 43.6% of these participants consumed one of these 5 brands within the past 30 days. Similar to this, of the 5 most popular brands that were consumed by females, 59.1% of these brands were consumed within the last 30 days prior to the research study. So the way that the questions were administered in the survey, it was kind of grouped by different kind of factors that can go into play as to them consuming the alcohol. So I picked 3 of the many that were mentioned, the 3 that went hand in hand with, health communication. First, it was media exposure. In the survey, participants were questioned about the magazines that they were reading over the last 30 days, as well as the television programs that they were watching over the last 30 days. The lists that were included, it was provided a list and they were to check off which ones they were reading or which ones they were watching. And of the ones that were listed, they all had the greatest rates of alcohol advertisements. Another thing that was included in this survey was brand awareness. So what they did was they had multiple logos of alcohol brands, and the participants were to identify the brands and link them with the name of the alcohol. And then they also included behavioral risk factors within the last 30 days alongside with drinking. They were asked whether they were smoking as well or participating in any other risk factors such as driving without a seatbelt, smoking, or doing anything else that would be risky to their lives. They were also asked questions in this survey such as, what age did you have your first drink? And this helped researchers to assess, what risk factors that they had in their lives that drew them to alcohol consumption at an early age. The participants were also separated into clusters by the kind of media that they watched within the last 30 days. The 4 main clusters were the general audience, celebrity watchers, heavy mainstream media users, and late-night cable viewers. So now I'm going to discuss what was included in each one of these clusters. So the general audience, this included the majority of the participating youth, and this group included more females than males. For the celebrity watchers, this group included mostly females. Group members had a significantly higher percentages of reading magazines such as Cosmopolitan, People Magazine, and US Weekly. Surprisingly, this group actually did not watch as much TV as the rest of the clusters, but they did report to watching some of the most popular TV shows. Also, members of this group had parents or guardians under the same household who were also excessive drinkers. The heavy mainstream media users. This group were the magazine readers. They loved reading magazines ranging from Cosmopolitan, Vogue, People, InStyle, InTouch, Allure, Maxim, and Sports Illustrated. They also reported to watching a lot of TV programming and reality shows. So these were the heavy ones, the ones who were doing it more often than they should have been doing at an early age. And then we had the late night cable viewers. This group was mostly males, and they come from upper income households. The high percentages of participants in this group were also cigarette smokers. So this kind of went hand in hand with the individual risk factors. They also reported to reading magazines such as the Rolling Stone and watching programs such as The Daily Show. So the results of this study. In the past 30 days, female youth in the celebrity watchers clusters were more likely to have a consumed Bud Light and Mike's beverage than the female youth in the general audience cluster. Female youth in the heavy mainstream media user cluster were more likely to have consume Budweiser than those in the general audience cluster. Male youth in the late night cable viewer cluster were more likely to have had a Coors Light in the past 30 days compared to the male youth in the general audience cluster. So as you can see, they were comparing male and females to the specific kind of drinks that they would, drink based off of their reportings. There were a few limitations to this study. First and foremost, the survey was cross-sectional, so it was only correlating to specific things, and this hinders us from determining whether brand consumptions precedes media use patterns or whether the media use patterns precede brand consumptions, because it was that cross-sectional. Second, the survey did not directly measure or the exposure to alcohol advertising or to embedded alcohol messages in the programs themselves. Therefore, we can't necessarily conclude that the specific advertising or program content is associated with the consumption of specific brands. This study did indeed lay a foundation for future research, though, by defining groups of underage drinkers who are homogeneous with respect to their media use, and thereby allowing for a simultaneous control of the factors that make up today's complex media landscape. And this definitely goes hand in hand with, health communication. though health communication can be a good thing in combating sicknesses and stuff of that nature, it can also be a bad thing in how we advertise these like the alcohols and how the young crowds view them. And these are my references. Thank you.